The following Four Aces production is for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is highly advised.
Kicking back on this summer breeze. Welcome to Double K's Classroom. Class is officially in session.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition, or evening as it may be, this week's edition of Double K's Classroom right here on Spreaker.com. Four Aces Presents, as well as now iHeartRadio. So let's dig right on in. Like this week, it's another training camp episode, just like we did a couple of weeks ago when I discussed the San Francisco 49ers. And being that I am an offshoot of West Coast bias, most of what I stick to is West Coast sports teams and sporting events. So this week I decided to cover the other side of the bay, and that is the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders finished 12-4 last season. They were a damn good team. Unfortunately for them, they lost both their games against the Kansas City Chiefs, who tied them with a 12-4 record, but won the division. So therefore got the bye, the number 2 seed and the bye into the second round in the home game. The Raiders ended up getting the home game against the Texans, or getting the game, home game. Oh no, ended up playing a away game against the Texans, who were division winners, and losing to them 27-14. Now the key thing to remember in discussing this loss for the Raiders is the fact that they went through most of the last part of the season without Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a huge part of that offense. He was what drove it. He finished last season with a little over almost 4,000 yards passing, almost 30 TDs, with less than 10 interceptions, and was sacked 16 times, the last time of which broke his, I believe, left leg. And he was out for the rest of the season. So Connor Cook led the Raiders into, I believe he went out week 16 or 17. And Connor Cook took over and led them into the playoffs. So during this offseason, a lot of things happened, and I'm going to start here with it, and that's with the move to Vegas. It was approved in January of this offseason of the 2017 by the league owners. I believe only one team, and that was the Miami Dolphins, actually voted against it. But it is official now in 2020, at the beginning of the 2020 season, the Oakland Raiders will now be the Las Vegas Raiders. Bad news for Raider Nation, at least in the Bay Area. I actually genuinely feel bad for them because of the fact that I switched when I was. Let me give you a little history here. When I was a kid, I used to be a fan, and my parents allowed me, just same way I'm allowing my daughter to do so. I used to be a fan of the Raiders and the 49ers because I was a hometown boy, and I loved both teams. But I was kind of a bigger fan of the Raiders because they were closer to me. Sounds stupid, but it is what it is. Okay? Those were my reasons. And so, with that being said, when the Raiders moved to LA, that broke my heart. And it coincided with the 49ers getting extremely good, signing Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, etc. I've explained this before on the show and as well on West Coast Bias. And I kind of turned my back on what was then LA Raiders and became a 49er faithful. So I always have a soft spot in my heart for the Raiders. Really, really I do. And really part of the reason why I have that soft spot for them is because I love the town of Oakland. I love the city of Oakland. I love the pier. I love I love Jack London Square. Yes, the cranes out on the pier, out on the docks do look like AT-ATs from Star Wars. And it's just a beautiful city. It's a beautiful area. I don't the Warriors. I'm not thinking it's that big of a deal, at least not to me, as to why they're moving to the why they're moving to San Francisco, because San Francisco, it's kind of like the move to San Francisco that the 49ers made a few years back in 2010 when they moved to Santa Clara. It's a 30-minute further drive up the road to get to Levi Stadium than it was to get to Candlestick Park. And Candlestick Park was already over an hour drive for me from where I'm at in Sacramento anyway. So with that being said, I think about it, and it's not really that big of a deal to me to have the Warriors move in San Francisco. Like I said, for me, that's a 10-minute less drive. But for a lot of my fans and friends that grew up in Oakland, they don't like all their lives the Warriors have been in Oakland, and they want the Warriors to stay in Oakland. But they're accepting of the fact that the move is eventually going to happen. Just like I think a lot of Raider Nation will eventually become accepting of what has happened. Um, I'm always one to believe that if you call yourself a fan of a football team, that you should be a fan of that team. And the reason why I say it like that is because you stay a fan of that team no matter where they move. Now, right now, there's a lot of Raiders fans that are grumbling and booing, and they're very upset with Mark Davis. And they're and a lot of them want to do this: put a bullet in his head. No, I'm messing with you. That's a little violent, but a lot of them would love to hurt him, punch him in the mouth, or punch him in the face, or slap him. All of which would, to me, be appropriate responses to what he's done with this team. Instead of doing everything he could, I overheard. Let's use a prime example. I overheard my boss discussing it with one of our vendors yesterday over at Buffalo Wild Wings, and his comment was, "Well, the city of Oakland didn't do anything to try to keep them," and that's just bullshit. The city of Oakland did a lot to try to keep the Raiders as a team in the city of Oakland. Mark Davis just didn't want it to happen. Mark Davis was going to find himself a new home for the Raiders, regardless of whether or not anybody liked it. And that was the sad thing about it. Is that I don't think Al would have wanted to leave. I think Al left because he was trying to make a play with the NFL. The Raiders could have stuck it out and tried to find a new stadium spot in the Oakland area, but they didn't. Now they're moving to Vegas. There were some people, Mr. Suave, on some of my other shows that I've been on that are saying that would say that, oh well, it'll never happen. It would never have happened because the league just wouldn't approve a team in Vegas, which unfortunately they had to eat a little crow on, and yeah, and not be able to address or not be able to admit that, you know what, this was always a possibility. Right now, the Raiders are in reality going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the city of Las Vegas, from their end, they're extremely happy because I've read reports on census reports on projecting the size of Vegas by the year 2020 when the Raiders get there, and they're supposed to be about the size of Oakland or San Francisco by the time the Raiders get there. They have a stadium that they will fill with a lot of faithful. The team always travels well, so I don't see why there won't be on a weekly basis different groups of Raiders fans from the Bay Area traveling to Vegas to go see them. Hell, I've seen it on multiple occasions already. I've seen posts on Facebook and otherwise talking about, all right, y'all, I'm trying to get together these tickets and we're gonna go see these Raiders, or they're talking about going to see them in Mexico City. So I think there people will continue to go to Raiders games. People will continue to go and enjoy Raiders football. But for 3 years, you get it at the Coliseum, you get Raiders football at home, and you get a team that's really on the preface of winning a Super Bowl, something that I'll get into soon. For the city of Oakland, unfortunately, this is bad. Now it leaves them with nobody but effectively the A's, who are currently looking for a new site and have committed to staying in Oakland as teams in the Bay Area, and that's huge. You want your teams. You want to have. It was nice to have three teams in Oakland. You had the Warriors, you had the Raiders, you had the A's. Now Warriors are gone to San Francisco, the Raiders are gone to Vegas, and the A's are the only team left. So this is going to have a huge impact on the city of Oakland. Not necessarily in the sense of their self-worth or anything like that. It's just going to have a huge impact on the economy. It's going to be less money coming in. The city of Oakland made money directly off of the parking lot at the Oracle Arena and Odaco Coliseum, off the $30 a car that was charged for people to park there. Like, so economy-wise, it's going to be a hit. It definitely is going to be a hit. But I think Oakland will survive just like every other city would have survived the loss of an NFL team. And even though a lot of Raiders fans say they don't want another team in Oakland unless it's the Raiders, who knows? The city may feel different and take an expansion team. This year in the draft, the Raiders picked up a couple of key players, but there was one guy in particular that I want to talk about before we go to our first commercial break. And he was, how do you say, Garen Conley. Garen Conley is a rookie cornerback out of Ohio State. He was a stud. Like there was another cat that was coming out around that got taken a little bit earlier than him. I forget what his name was, but the Raiders did very good by getting this kid and added to a defensive secondary that needs him. Now you have him taking on David Amerson for that second cornerback slot, which we'll get to in the second half of the show. And I think this kid, he just got done beating rape charges. He's supposedly healthy again. We'll see what happens. First preseason game, I believe, is within the next couple of days, or this weekend. So, just keep an eye on that when you're watching those Raiders games. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break, our first commercial break, which is always known as recess. You're listening to Double K's Classroom right here on the 4Aces Network and iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com. 4Aces presents. Hey guys. This time around, I'm taking a look at the music lineup that we have here at 4Aces Presents. It consists of about 7 to 8 shows, everything from Brick House on Sundays to Dirty Talk 101 on Tuesdays and Reality Radio on Mondays. So first, let's listen in to a little bit of Brick House and see what you're in for.
Hello! Did I mess with your ears a little bit there? Hello, it's me. Remember me?
All right. Brick House takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. via podcast, so be sure to check us out for that. Next up, we got Dirty Talk 101 with Miss Essie.
Dirty Talk 101, where we talk to the bull, stories unfold, nothing's ever off limits to be told. And with that being said, you already know what I'm gonna do. Gonna get right into another session of Dirty Talk 101.
Cause she did the performance. My phone call, she was never ignored. She keep it all under the curtains. I'ma do that pussy right, girl. I know what you like, and I know he ain't doing you right. Come with me, I'll have you back by the end of the night. Just let me lay that pipe. I'ma do that pussy right, girl. Cause I'ma do that pussy right.
Now, Dirty Talk comes to you every Tuesday at 9 p.m. with Essie out there in that Vegas area throwing it down. Next up is Reality Radio with E. Reed.
You're listening to Reality Radio with your host, E. Reed. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Y'all already know what time it is.